And then let's kind of get into it. Let's talk to the guy that has played the game. So if you're not familiar, this badass right here, want to see my tattoos, HenryG? I got my oh shit, no, don't have any tattoos. HenryG, friend of mine, go back several years, ex-pro Counter-Strike Source player, legendary player of the London Mint from the Championship Gaming Series. Did a bunch of event logistics, corporate work, etc. after he was a pro player. Dipped his toe into doing some commentating a few years ago, well, many years ago now. Liked it, loved it, well embraced by all of us. Obviously an amazing play-by-play caster because of his experience in Counter-Strike. Has had several partners along the way. You know, obviously him and Satikist, legendary Counter-Strike duo. They've kind of gone their separate ways, and now Henry is building a legendary duo with Machine. Alex, basically, is kind of the tag team for those two guys right now. And again, love this guy. We have similar music tastes, similar life philosophies. Henry and I started talking after his series of tweets. And again, he put up a whole tweet storm of first impressions when the embargo lifted for people that had played the game. And it went viral. News organizations picked up his feedback because, again, he's an ex-pro. He's literally one of the best commentators in Counter-Strike and in esports. He is Esports Caster of the Year 2019 over all games.
This is the longest intro to an interview ever. Like, this is like Game of Thrones level of the princess, what's her name's coming, blah, 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 Queen of the Dragons.
Jesus.
And
there he is, the man, the myth.
Intro, Scott.
You deserve it, my friend.
You've really
you
built
deserve
me
it.
up there. You've built me up way too much, but I appreciate that. I love you just as much. I'm happy to be here, and I believe I'm the first guest as well, right?
You are, yes. We are. This is new technology for us, folks. We are figuring out how to do remote interviews. We are in a big broadcast facility, which sometimes makes things harder and different when you're trying to do stuff you're used to doing with just a couple PCs. So we got that tech worked out. So now we'll be on a regular basis having interviews. Henry, I would love you to be standing right here with me, though, bro, instead of being in London. Where are you right now? Where in the world is Henry?
I'm in London. Kind of like we've got a bit of a situation here in Europe. Everyone's kind of panicking right now due to a certain virus. So I thought I'd just created myself a little bunker in London, and I'm kind of hiding from the world right now. But you know what? I'm feeling good, feeling safe. It's going to be okay, I think.
Yeah. Let's. We're going to talk about Counter-Strike at the end of this. Let's get to what I think a lot of people want to hear your talk on Valorant. But I'm going to hit you up on ESL event you just came home from, the good and the bad of it. Obviously, closed stadium, all that good stuff. Let me get into my questions though. So first and foremost, obviously, long series of tweets. One of the main things that stuck out to me is that and I think it sparked a lot of discussion was that. You said that this was the best game you'd played since Global Offensive, right? And anyone who loves Global Offensive as their number one, you got a lot of love and hate for that. Like, what the hell is this guy talking about? So let's preface that. How much time did you get with the game, and why do you feel that way generally, that it is the next best game you played, so to speak?
So let me start by addressing that kind of sensational comment I made towards the end of those tweets. There is a reason I made that tweet. Obviously, it's a bit of hyperbole, I suppose. I haven't played the game a ton. I've played it maybe 6 hours playtime total against players that aren't very good and didn't actually play the game themselves. But it felt like, to me, it was the first time it's going to be a Counter-Strike challenger. It's the first time we're going to see a game actually step up that's looking to take some of the market share away from Counter-Strike. In my opinion, there's been no games that have ever been able to do that. No games I've thought, well, this could actually be a real rival for us. It just felt like Valorant was the first game that's knocking on our front door. And the reason I made that tweet was I want Valve to know now, before it's too late, that there's a game that's coming, and they're kind of already implementing all the ideas we want within CSGO when it's brand new game that's pretty fucking polished as it is. And I'm more worried for CS than I am thinking, oh, this is a brilliant game, I'm moving on. I want Valve to realize that this is a big deal, and they need to step their game up. Okay,
so this was almost kind of a subliminal message, if you will, to the boys.
A little bit, yeah.
At Valve.
I don't know about you, but I've never really had any sort of meeting with Valve. I've been working with the game since its very first alpha in 2011. I was one of the first people to ever play CSGO in its worst possible form. When I played the alpha of that game, it was terrible. It was rough. And we were frustrated considering we were the players flown out there, similar way I was for Riot as well. We got the playtest, everything. We gave them all our feedback. Unfortunately, back then, all the CSGO players you know and love now, their English wasn't as good as it is at this point. So I was one of the few English-speaking players actually there. So I kind of led the meetings, and I kind of thought, we've got all the notes, we've given them all our feedback, and do you know how much they listened to it? Like absolute zero. That's why I thought it's interesting that Riot seem to be very keen to listen to us, and they're taking notes, and they're actually responding to our feedback, and they're actively communicating with us. And I'm very worried that Valve's philosophy and also almost their stubbornness, it's going to cost them some market share. But it seems that they're very easy solutions to fix right now within CS. Like, I'm not a huge Valorant champion right now. I think it's a cool game, and I'm ready for it to play it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. But overall, I want CSGO to be ready for when this game comes out, and they need to kind of pull their socks up, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's a really valid point. Like, again, our game at its core is, a little over 20 years old with various versions.
Yeah.
And since the very beginning, it's always been, this game's going to kill Counter-Strike, this game's going to kill Counter-Strike, this game's going to hurt Counter-Strike. And through every version, the only thing that has ever hurt our game is stuff like global recessions and economies of the world changing. But no game has ever really beat on us, right? Because it's such a unique kind of game type. It's not easy. There's no single player really in that sense. A little bit more now, right? But then there used to be.
Sure.
So I think your point is valid. Like, this is definitely a challenger in some regards with Sal's there, right? Volcano is knee deep in this thing.
Yes.
Some of the stuff, the buy rounds, any character can use any gun at any time. There is an economy. That is straight ripped from our world, man,
Yeah, absolutely. It pretty much is like a carbon copy in terms of the setup, in terms of the economy, the way the maps play out. It's 5-on-5. And it's taking the best of Counter-Strike, I would say, in terms of the DNA of it. And then kind of, obviously, they can't just make the exact same game. It wouldn't really work. They have to bring in their own elements. And I would say they've kind of taken it from Apex Legends and Overwatch and kind of combined those two. And as I mentioned in my tweets, I think they're very much diluted versions of like the ultimates and the abilities. And I made it quite clear as well, you're not really reliant on those. Like, they're very much like utility within Counter-Strike. Obviously, with things like mobility, abilities there are, and the fact you get like sort of drones and sort of gadgets and stuff like that, which I haven't had enough time to really play on to comment on how much impact that will have. In terms of the gunplay, it's already up there with CSGO in terms of the individual mechanics and the way the guns play out. The fact they have 128 tick matchmaking worldwide and server locations throughout the world, like they're aiming to give almost every player in the world a reasonable ping to play on. This is the kind of stuff within CS we're missing. Like, we don't even have a in-house matchmaking ranking system that makes any sense. We've had the same matchmaking system since the game's inaugural release, and that's something I just don't understand. Like, how have we not evolved that system so we can actually just keep players within the actual matchmaking system that's built to the game instead of having to go to third-party platforms? And I just think that's just not good enough anymore. How are we justifying they've got to spend £10 a month externally to get a good competitive experience? Like, I just don't get how this is not a bigger issue.
Yeah, it made perfect sense years ago when no game developer really cared about ladders or rankings within their games, and we all went to other servers, we all went to other services to kind of get that next level of competition. But now these are built-in game systems from the game devs now. So, like, why is ours still so fucking broken?
Yeah,
right?
And that's one thing I'll say as well. League of Legends has got like one of the best ranking system, I think, in terms of that sort of thing online. So if they implement the same one from that into Valorant, that's going to be awesome. Like, imagine like trying to compete to get in the top 500, for example, like that, and actually having a proper ranking system and an anti-cheat that works. Like, these are all kind of dreams in CSGO that I'm not sure we'll ever see realized.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think one thing to think about with Riot, I know a lot of us that aren't necessarily League of Legends fans, or we watch and see a lot of the negative Riot news about, corporate behaviors, etc. Like, they run the most popular game on the planet. They have the best global distribution of the most popular game on the planet. So to think the next games that get shoved into this exact same pipeline, as long as they're built well and play well, that they won't instantly become incredibly popular is kind of asinine to think, right? Like, they have to because they got everything in place already to push this game to the world well, right? So now it's just if the gameplay is good. Like, I'm not worried about Counter-Strike. Again, our numbers are going up, but I think this will definitely get people to come play it and watch it. You know, everyone and their mother is already a pro trying to find like, you know, sponsorship rides and stuff. You know, we're the number one show for the game already, you know, so that's been fun to watch. People put it in their header, you know, Valorant Pro looking for a team. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
I can't believe what's wrong with us in esports right now. We can't just seem to even discuss things in shades of grey anymore. You're either one or the other. You either hate or love something. There's no in between, whether it's a league, a game, a commentator, a player. Like, there's no middling conversation. It's always love or hate. I just don't understand it. Like, people who haven't even played the game, as you mentioned in your intro, that are coming out and saying this resurrection stuff, it's overpowered. It's like it's the game's doomed. It's all done for. And they've just seen like a screenshot, and it's like, I get it. Like, I even tweeted out saying I don't like the idea of resurrection, but let's
that's
break
on my
it
list.
down and calm down first.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I don't know if you played with Sage at all or got a chance to play against Sage.
It was my main.
Is that a hard cooldown? Does that take a long time to even use that ability, or is that maybe OP?
So it's definitely a nuanced conversation here. So from what I could gather, you can see the resurrection at the bottom of your screen there. This is the big controversial talking point. So you get an ultimate that builds up. So the ultimates, from what I can gather, are the only spells that you don't buy. So those do charge up, but you can only use them, I would say, once per half. So that's like attack and defense. Remember, MR12. So the fact you can res just one player, bear in mind, it's not like a mercy thing where all 5 players come back to life and the whole team's back. This is one player, and if you're playing a high-level competitive game, you're not going to be wasting it in a silly situation in an anti-eco, for example. You're saving it for the key one-on-one clutch where this could actually be the difference maker, and you're going to destroy the economy of the opposition. This is like one time per half, like do or die moment, all in. And it's not like you're getting it every single round. So I think people need to definitely chill out about that whole situation. Like, it's certainly going to be a mechanic that needs to be balanced and changed. Like, all of these characters are going to be a little bit broken upon arrival. There's going to be so many of these young kids that work out the most disgusting ultimate combinations and things that are OP that's just going to happen. That's going to be a thing. But in my opinion, it's not the end of the world. Like, the gunplay mechanics, for me, you can get opening frags in this game if you want them within 5 seconds of a round starting. So there's like a build period at the start, like for the defense to kind of set themselves up. They're not frozen in spawn. So you start like Overwatch. You're allowed to go about 50 meters outside your spawn, set up your defenses as they were, your crossfires, work out where you're going to place your utility. And then they can actually be right up to choke points. So you can be within 20 meters of the opposition, and the round goes live. You could have a fight within 5 seconds, or you can play super passive. And that kind of video demonstrates here. This map was very similar to Tuscan. I wanted to point out, you mentioned that Sal's involved within the creation of the game. This map on the screen right now, that is like so reminiscent of Tuscan. The layout, the bomb site, you can see it kind of the way it plays. It is like a Tuscan. It's inspired by it. Like, and I think that's super smart. That why not take some of the legendary maps that haven't been put into CS:GO and kind of remake them here within this new landscape, which is Valorant, which I think is a pretty exciting idea.
Yeah, what is, help me out, what is that like glowing wall that's like two-tone color? What is that purpose of that?
So that is one of the ultimate abilities, I believe, of the character, which a name escapes me. This, you have to bear in mind, I played the game mainly for the gun mechanics. When I was there, I didn't sit down and get to play every single character. We had one play day. That is an ultimate one character. It's a green wall that you can get inside that wall, and you're healing once you're inside there. You're taking you get HP back, and the opposition will lose their health as well. And that's about it. So it's like an incendiary, I would say, that blocks vision. And the X-ray you see within that as well is like I'm not sure how familiar with Overwatch you are. The Hanzo arrow that gives you a little bit of vision for a couple of seconds. That is destructible. So you can shoot that. You see that coming in, and you can shoot that before it even gives info away. So I don't think that video is the best sequence for Riot to release, because that actually shows 2 sequences of that green slime wall, an X-ray, Hanzo arrow going in. I think it actually makes the whole thing look a little bit silly. That wasn't my experience of the game at all. I didn't really have any.
It definitely makes it look a little more Overwatchy in that sense of all that stuff happening at the same time. So speaking of that's also something that came up a lot. Again, Counter-Strike people looking at competitive integrity, going, "Oh wait, there's a wall hack now in the game." Right? Again, much like Hanzo's, right? Like, that's OP, that's stupid, that has no place in a tactical shooter. So is that the same kind of thing that you can only use a couple times, or is that a buyable one? Or do you remember?
That to me, that's one I remember hearing people saying they're deploying at the start of each round. That seems like an ability that's available. One thing to note as well, once you choose a character or a hero within this game, you are locked in for the entirety of that half. It's like, let's say it's in comparison of choosing an M4 1AS or an M4A4. You can, once you're locked in a character, you can't be chasing per round or adapting. Once you're locked in with your squad, that's it. Regarding the Hanzo thing, I don't think it's as OP as it looks. Like, I remember the guys firing it off and it shows you like 2 seconds of info and it's delayed as far as I'm aware. Like, it doesn't show you exactly where they are. It's like there was a caveat that came with it, but I can't really recall. Either way, it wasn't like a problem where it felt like, wow, this guy keeps dropping that arrow and we're dying every round. It's the game and the maps are designed to kind of counter that and make sure you have cover.
Got you. Okay, and then since it has a money economy, does that mean that there's also the potential of like save rounds and eco rounds that we're used to in Counter-Strike?
Definitely.
Where you've got to like...
Yeah. So there's like, it's the whole array of Counter-Strike weapons. Like they've called them different names. So I've actually got them written down here. We can kind of go through them a little bit. But every weapon, you know, from Counter-Strike, from the SMGs, shotguns, the rifles, the pistols, pretty much feature like it's a straight up rip-off in terms of like how they play and the general setup. At least the build we played. So you have things like 4 rifles, you have a couple of sniper rifles which operate exactly the same way as the AWP and the Scout would, for example. Then the SMGs, there's a couple of those, one of which looks like the MP5, one looks like a MAC-10. You could do things like the Sheriff is like the revolver, which is like your Desert Eagle. So you could go in for a round and that's like $700 or whatever currency they use within the game. You can buy yourself armor, and armor doesn't necessarily provide you anything more than extra HP. Your baseline HP is 100. If you get light armor, or Kevlar for a comparison within CSGO, that gives you 125 health, I believe. Then if you get the armor helmet, you get 150 health. There is no benefit to having the helmet and Kevlar in terms of aim punch, as far as I'm aware. I might be off the mark there, but that's, from what I can recall, that's the it's more of an HP boost at the start to enable you to be a little bit stronger, meaning you could survive a scout shot, for example, if you have light armor, because it's kind of, armor doesn't really make sense in CSGO in general. Like, it's such a weird thing. Like, why do we have even a number on armor within CSGO? It doesn't really do anything, right? You could have 20 armor and still be fine. So I think that's just why that that number doesn't make sense. It just gives you more HP generally.
Got you.
And I think that's pretty much Counter-Strike, but it looks different in terms of the economy. That's regarding the guns.
And then speaking of the economy, does that mean you kind of start in that pistol round, like you don't have a lot of money, you start the game light?
Exactly. So you could aim to go for a couple of bits of utility. The other character I played the most was called Phoenix. So he would be like what I call an entry fragger character. So he's got this ability called Curveball, which is very similar to a flashbang, I would say, in terms of you can throw a flashbang, but it's not like you can just like pull the pin and choose where it goes. The curveball is you have Q and E, which are your curveball keys, and they're able to throw out flashbangs that go directly around a corner, like in a hook-like manner. So you run up to a choke point, you can deploy a curveball, which is like I said, it goes around like a hook. It does a direct 180 into the bomb site. That flashbang goes off, and that could be your one eco setup. You have Phoenix going in first with the flashbang. He then swings in with his revolver, goes to the 1D, and everyone kind of snowballs onto the bomb site. So you can definitely buy some basic utility with the right characters, some upgraded pistols, maybe one rifle, and it's more like an execution in that sense. So that's why I compare it to utility, because yes, you can have low buy rounds, but still win off clever play with the abilities, not even the ultimates.
Got you. And then in regards to picking your character, is it, if I pick one, you can't pick one on my team? Like, you can't have multiples of the same characters, I imagine, running around?
Exactly, yeah. There's a pool of, I think it was 8. To kick things off, or with the build we played at least. And yes, once your teammates chooses one, that's locked out. And as I mentioned, you're stuck with that the entire half. And maybe even the game. I can't recall. From what I think it was the half.
Okay. And then, and I know it's really early, and again, I'm not trying to speculate, but in your conversations with Riot, were they discussing stuff like eventually there would be enough of these characters that turns into its own like meta, like you would see in a MOBA, where you're picking and banning pre-match?
I think so. I think that's where they're aiming towards, definitely. I feel like they want to have the baseline of characters for now, and it's not really like there wasn't like an esports mode we saw. It's like just the very few level characters they had available to us. There was a few we weren't allowed to touch. They weren't quite ready. And I think that they're certainly aiming towards a level where you can pick and ban. And for me, that's where Overwatch just dropped the ball completely. Like the fact you can't actually ban characters, and they refuse to let that be a thing, and everyone's just replicating it, setups and stuff. Like you've left no real ceiling there in terms of being able to deny the strengths of a really solid meta. Like, and everyone's going to be running the same thing. Like it really ruins the entire premise of a class-based game, I think. So I really hope they do, at least. And knowing the smart people that are involved in it, like we referenced Volcano, I think there will be a pick and ban system for characters.
Makes sense. Especially, obviously, you need enough of a pool of characters to make that feasible.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
that might take a while.
I don't think initially, but eventually.
Okay, now let's shift a little bit to HenryG, the caster, not HenryG, the pro player. Casting impressions as a guy that, and I'm not going to ask you if you're quitting Counter-Strike and you're going to, become a caster for this game, but like, put your caster hat on. How was it? How do you feel it'll be entertainment-wise as a viewer being casted? It is round-based, so we love that. Counter-Strike is so perfect in so many ways when it comes to broadcasting our game and telling the story between rounds. How did you feel as caster, Henry? Are there spectator tools, all those kind of things?
That is one thing we didn't really get to see too much of. We were part of the very first ever playtest, so we just got to see 2 maps. One of which I will say did have 3 bomb sites. So that's an interesting discussion point in itself. There's A, B, and C. And there's also different ways to move around the map. So we were able to teleport from one side of the map to the other with a portal-like structure in the middle of the map, which is interesting, though. You could only enter the portal one way. So if you went through the portal, you couldn't come back. It was kind of like a one-way sort of wormhole to the other side of the map. An interesting way to fake bomb sites and kind of suggest what you were doing. I would definitely say it's going to be a lot less. What's the best way of putting this? It's going to be a lot more chaotic than Counter-Strike. It's certainly not going to have the real nicely flowing storylines and basic gameplay. There's things like security cameras and drones that fly around. There's going to be a lot of confusing elements. I would say it's more like, have you ever watched competitive Rainbow Six? Like when I watch that, I feel very confused. I don't know what's going on there. Like there's so many little gizmos and things running around, and I'm sure once you learn the game and you get into it, it's awesome. But I would say watching CS:GO compared to Rainbow Six is a much more pleasurable experience for certainly someone who's not a hardcore player of the game. I think that's going to be the problem with Valorant from an esports point of view, that it might be a little bit too technical in terms of all the different things that can happen for it to be as powerful as Counter-Strike or as successful, I suppose.
Gotcha. And that leans into more of that Overwatch comparison too, right? Like it is harder to spectate. It's harder to understand all the things happening on your screen at that moment.
With it being round-based, though, it's easier for someone like me, at least, to build up kind of storylines and going, okay, the money's now broken going into this round. They're going to have to do this. We're going to be able to predict that play instead of being a perpetual 15-minute sort of ongoing round like Overwatch is. That's the kind of gameplay I don't like, because that leads itself towards, let's just build up the ultimates, everyone coming for a clusterfuck, and it's impossible to commentate this massive kind of clusterfuck that's happening on the middle of a bomb site or whatever, the capture point. I feel like with round-based games, you avoid that, but it's certainly going to have its issues with all the little techs and gadgets and abilities, and it'll be quite jarring initially, I think, especially when we're defining how the game is played. And just to be clear, I will comment on this whole situation. It feels like everyone is assuming I'm some sort of Riot employee at this point. I'm not even a consultant. They just bring me out because they know I've been doing this shit for a long time, and I give them very honest feedback. And I'm very good friends with Volcano. Him and I sit down after the playtest and we just discuss his ideas and his visions for the game, and we kind of just shoot the shit about it. And I think it's a very important game that's coming out, and it's not like I want to sabotage them. I think games that challenge Counter-Strike are a good thing. It encourages us to grow and evolve and not to rest on our laurels, and Counter-Strike will always be my main game, but it's good to see the other good games coming out as well, and I think that encourages us to be better.
And it's like you said, anything that maybe lights a little bit of fire under the Valve gangs.
Absolutely. That's why that's good for definitely us. Being a dick with that last tweet I did, saying like this is the best games in CS:GO. But I do stand by that. Like in terms of, I think games have sucked the last 10 years. Like I think the whole BR craze we went through was like the most agonizing period of esports ever. Like the fact we had to go through and watch PUBG try and set up hundreds of PCs at events, and same story at Fortnite. It's like, this isn't going to work. This is not esports. Like, it's a great game, it's cool, but why does everyone have to force feed this esports tag on top of it? And I don't know, it's the first game that's inspired me to feel like this is a game that could actually be something like Counter-Strike if they do it correctly. And I feel like they're actually listening, which is something Valve doesn't really do. They don't communicate and listen to their figureheads, their communities. It's all very much whatever they say, that's what's going down.
Yeah, it's definitely the Valve way, or thanks for your input.
I've never had a one-on-one conversation with Valve since I started commentating. Right, I've been doing their majors, every single major since 2015.
Yeah,
and they've been in attendance. And it's like this is like how bad it is. Like I'm pretty sure they're aware who I am. But like when I walk past like a Valve employee in the hallway, walk into the stadium, they actually like to look down at the floor when I walk past. Like they don't even want to say hello to me. It's like, come on, man. Like I mean, they're the face of your game for like the last 6 years. Like, is any way like just throw me a bone, at least like be like civil and say hello to me? Like, why are we pretending we're not like on the same team? I don't get it.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
You know,
you guys are the biggest.
Just wanted to get it out there.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are the biggest cheerleaders for the game every weekend, generally, right? And not
Sure.
intentionally, but just by the nature of what you guys do for a living.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's always been weird with Valve, right? Which is it's unfortunate. But like you said, maybe this will kind of spark them a little bit. Let's shift to
Well, it is
Counter-Strike.
interesting that.
Go ahead.
Just one last word. It's interesting that they did drop like 2 or 3 updates since with those kind of tweets were made. It feels like there is a little bit of action brewing in the Valve camp since this is all kicked off. I will say that.
Yeah, and obviously we've got the agent skins and stuff, so they're in a new operation going. That's why our numbers are going up for those kind of reasons.
Sure.
But to your point, like that's kind of minor in comparison to what's coming as competition. They need to really think about the matchmaking stuff, the whole ecosystem as well, right? So let's shift to Counter-Strike. If you don't mind, I know that you're again number one Valorant caster, but if you don't mind talking about your old favorite game,
exactly.
I'm gonna get you in trouble with somebody today. I'm trying, Henry. So obviously you're just coming off of ESL and IEM Katowice. Awesome Counter-Strike event. Great,
amazing
in-game stuff. Very upsetting, distressing, disappointing situation that happened with the city. Last minute pulling the plug on the permit that ESL had to operate the venue with the public in it. Kind of walk us through. We'll talk about Navi and s1mple in a minute, but like kind of how was that for you guys? Because obviously you get energy off the room. We always talk about when the casters are tucked away somewhere or they're remote somewhere and they're not in the venue. It's hard to keep the energy up. It's hard to kind of push that excitement to people at home when you don't hear it from the fans in the arena. So how was that for you guys?
You know what? When I heard that news, there was 2 ways I could have taken it. I could have been really emo and bummed out about it, and I could have just been like, "Oh, that's it. The event's ruined. This is going to suck, and we'll just do what we can." But I didn't really want to approach it like that. I knew it was a real shame, and there was so many thousands of people that have been affected by that real kind of shitty situation, including all the people that are involved in building the event and kind of setting it all up. Like, I can't stress enough. Like, there was a whole expo that was supposed to happen as well. I saw it, but like, there was like a whole expo hall of like maybe 50, 60 stands in there, like just was derelict. Like they couldn't even de-rig it because of the permits and stuff. So it was so much wasted money and potential, and like it was such a great and iconic event. We realized that it was our responsibility at that point just to make sure we did everything we could to make that Counter-Strike the most exciting and enthralling event it could be, and give it the justification it deserves. And I think we delivered on that front. And from a broadcast point of view, we wanted to make sure we celebrated how epic the Counter-Strike was, the level that was being displayed, how good these players are, and like how far we've come in terms of an esport. In terms of, you'd even look back to 2015, it's the level of professionalism, the skill, the trajectory, the way everything's coming together at this point. I think it's worth celebrating how awesome Counter-Strike is. Even without the crowd, I had goosebumps every single round in the playoffs. I was like, this is it. This is peak Counter-Strike. This is what it looks like. This is what it's all about. These players putting everything they've got, leaving it out there, and giving us some amazing games. So it was a little bit of a humbling experience having to do that sort of event in the stadium with no crowd there, but also inspired us to try as hard as we could just to make sure everyone still felt like it was special. And that's why we kind of, with the grand final as well, I guess it was a bit of a talking point. Everyone was like, oh, why they're switching the casters up for this best of 5. I don't know if you can hear it. My voice, it can only take so much. And I average like casting 6 maps a day at those sort of events. And I could definitely do a best of 5, no problem. I've done plenty of them before in my life, but I wanted to make sure that we could give it 110% every single map. So it wasn't like a tactical move from ESL. It wasn't them trying to put another little cool thing on it to make up for the crowd not being there. This was our idea between the casters to say, like, let's give this tournament what it deserves. Let's knock it out of the park, and both duos going to give it 110% every second, every round of this best of 5. If it goes the distance, people are going to get the best experience they possibly can. So just to know, that was nothing to do with VSL or a tactical move, just as wanting to make sure the crowd and, well, the crowd at home experienced it in the best possible way.
No, and it makes sense, because if it does go to map 5 and it's the same crew that does all the way to map 5, that's a less energy 5th map. It just naturally is. That's a long set of talking, right, for anybody, whether it was you guys or Anders and Moses, etc. So it was smart. And again, your energy was good. Your casting was great, as always, So it definitely translated to, and not that you only went 3 maps, obviously, right? Thanks to s1mple and gang.
That is a shame.
Not for them. I mean, I would imagine if I'm Navi, I'm going to be like, I don't ever want to play in a stadium with fans again, because look what we just did to everybody, And let's talk about that. s1mple maybe finally has a full team around him, right?
I think so. This is the most legit looking Navi I've ever seen. And that's saying something. This has been a world-class organization that's had a decent footing within Counter-Strike, top 10 for its existence pretty much. I feel like this is the most compelling Navi team. And you've got to remember, it's one of the youngest teams we have within the top 10 right now. It's insane. You look at the average age within Navi, it's nuts. They've only been playing with Perfecto for 2 or 3 weeks at this point. They definitely have their issues, and they're by no means a perfect team at this point. But that just fills me with more confidence. Just the raw fucking skill score is just unparalleled. I've never seen anything like it. When s1mple, Electronic, Perfecto, Flamey all kicking off, and Boomich as well for that matter. Like it's scary out there. Like it's difficult for me to do my job, and that's a compliment. Like it's like the things they're doing technically shouldn't work, but because they're just unbelievably good at the game and they're hitting the shots they are, like some things just the Counter-Strike rulebook gets thrown out the window, and it's scary. Like it's difficult to even keep up. Like most of the time I can call situations, say, right, this is probably going to happen. If there's 2 players alive in any situation and a 2-on-5 and an RV, like they've got the resources in terms of talent to pull it off. And that was pretty breathtaking. And it was a legit run as well. Remember, they had to take down Liquid, Astralis, like G2 on their way there. This is the legit best of 3 victories. There was no like best of 1 cop-outs or anything like that. This was a legit tournament with the world's best, and they managed to run away with a 3-0 grand final as well. That's pretty fucking insane.
Yeah, and other than the second map of that best of 5, which was close, they dominated, right? They dominated G2, and they, for lack of a better word, they pushed Astralis' shit in. Right, I think the stat. No offense, I love Astralis, but they got their ass kicked. I think I saw a tweet that they have never lost a best of 3 with only winning 10 rounds total. Like that's a new negative record for Astralis, right?
I feel like the problem they had going into that game was they even came out saying, "Oh, we've done 15 hours of prep for Navi," and I was just like, "Yikes!" They're not the sort of team you want to come in like trying to anti-strat. Like they don't really necessarily stay within the perimeters of tactical Counter-Strike. If they get going and they start building up momentum, that they're just going to be going wherever they feel like it, letting players off the leash and just challenging you in very difficult positions. And that's why I feel like if you over-prepare for a team like that, especially if they're on form like the way they were the last couple of days, like that's a scary-ass prospect. And that was a good wake-up call. I feel like Astralis, that was a good tournament for them still. Like they overcame some decent teams there. They had the run against Vitality, really convincing victory there. Managed to take down Fnatic as well. And sure, they lost to Navi, the eventual winners, but it was an absolute nightmare of a game for them. Like they didn't even arrive. They didn't even win a single duel.
They got nothing going nothing was even close. Like it was just, again, like 10 rounds over 2 maps. Like what?
It was just one of those ones, I think you blink and you miss it sort of situation. They didn't realize like how much of a snowball effect Navi were going to have behind them. I don't think anyone expected that level from them. And they even had like massive tactical blunders. Like I was commenting at the most, I think. They've just sorted out for the final day, but Navi would refuse to take tactical timeouts even though they had 4 of them remaining, you've got one of the most experienced in-game leaders and coaches behind you, and they weren't taking timeouts until the grand final, actually, when they started to learn their lesson and start to stabilize. So that's the scary thing. This is like chapter 1, I think, of this new Navi squad. This is what's to come. And it's already looking like it's a new era almost in terms of the way the game is played. It looks incredibly exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Half-Life TV moved him up to number 2 in the rankings this week based on that weekend. Astralis still clutching number 1. Is Navi the number 1 team in the world for you?
No, I don't think so. I think that's not going to be clear. I feel that after the major, we can start having that conversation again. I feel that so many teams are in a strange place right now. If you look at the likes of Team Liquid, like that's a very strange squad. Difficult to really predict what's going to happen with them, whether they're going to bounce back. Astralis, I still feel like they've got it in them, but they need to they needed that wake up call just happening in Katowice right now. Navi, they're not going to be sustainable at the level they're at right now. That was absolute peak level in terms of individual performance. That is not going to transfer to every single event. Doesn't make them the best team, makes them one of the scariest teams individually. I think FaZe are in a decent position to gun for that number 1 title. I think they're in a fantastic spot to do so. G2, if they can sort out their consistency issues, they're definitely in a shout to get up there as well. It's looking very good for Counter-Strike as a whole. I don't think it matters too much who's the best team in the world right now. I think it's great. The level we're seeing is just rising incrementally. Every single event, we're seeing different peaks, and we're realizing who the most legit teams are now, and it's looking like it's real exciting generally for Counter-Strike. I think that's the best storyline for me.
Well, and like you said, like maybe that's the wake-up call that Astralis needed, right? It's one thing when you lose and they're close games and you can kind of wiggle your excuses like, oh, if we would have run the 12th round, if we would have run this round, the whole game changes and we win, right? And you can kind of sleep on those excuses a little bit like, oh, we were so close. Nothing close about those 2 maps, right? So that sends you home like with a different mindset, like, you know?
Yeah. I guess this is one of those games that there is the simple factor, which is difficult to quantify, Scott. Like there's some players that can't be anti-strated or taken out, and he's one of them. There's like sometimes it's one of those games. If he's having one of those moments, he's going to win the game for them. If he's going to start dropping 1v4s like he was, like you're in serious shit. So that's why I say it's difficult to believe that Navi will be sustainable the way they are going forward. But goddamn, if they turn up to events like that again, it's going to be difficult. They're certainly in the conversation to be a number 1 team, but it's going to take another at least 6 months. But I think the major is going to be sick if we get it. All things considered, considering the recent climate, I'm not sure what will happen going forward. But if we get the major we want, it's going to be fucking wild.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, and fingers crossed that coronavirus doesn't take that major away from us. One last thing I want to talk to you about is kind of about that. You know, you and I started talking after your tweets, and obviously we're going to try to do a lot of stuff together when it comes to Valorant. We were all excited that you were about to head to another playtest. You're allowed to film there, and we were going to grab that footage and make more videos with you and do all sorts of fun stuff, more interviews. They canceled the playtests for you guys, right, because of the virus. Is that accurate? All right, no playtests for the near future?
They're still waiting for final confirmation, but as far as I'm aware, the playtest I was going to go to this week is not happening. So I think there's a different solution coming forward. But I think it's just more of those things. It's like in terms of travel and trying to get people from different regions all into one place, it's just a better time not to do it.
Way better safe.
It's a shame, but it's going to happen still. Like I think they're just working out the logistics and they're working out the reschedule. So the video won't be dropping from us at least in the next couple of weeks, but maybe in the next month or so. Hopefully that's going to be the play. Yeah,
I mean, we're definitely at DMP very excited to be doing cool stuff with you, Henry.
I know, it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think this is the collaboration Esports has been hunting for a long time.
Yeah, because we're doing stuff with Thorn. We love working with Duncan, so getting you involved with stuff, awesome stuff. And again, since you're going to transition full time to this new game, like what better guy to have making content?
Exactly, the biggest shill of the entire industry.
You heard that subreddit, Counter-Strike Global Offensive subreddit. HenryG going full time. He's done. Done with Counter-Strike. All right, final thoughts on Valorant.
Yeah.
Counter-Strike. Anything else you wanna shout out, Henry? The floor is yours. Diabolical. Have you touched Diabolical yet?
Diabolical, I have not touched it, but I've played it 6 months ago when I was at Too Good's house. Good friend of mine. Looks like a great game. I'm not sure if the FPS world will really take to an arena game. I think it's been done before. Like Quake Live's been there the entire time, didn't really take off. Not sure why everyone's so convinced this one will. Wish them the very best of luck. It looks like a great game. I'm just not sure the genre has much in terms of legs to it going forward, but hope it does. It's not going to be a game for me, I don't think. But what else have we got going on? Valorant, look out for that. I think it's going to be a great shooter in general. I think it'll be the first game to challenge Counter-Strike in terms of a tactical shooter, but it's not going to be shutting Counter-Strike down. You don't need to be one or the other. You can just be excited to play a cool new game. Just think about that. Don't have to be one or the other. Just look forward to it and realize that if it's a good game, it would also encourage Counter-Strike to be better. And yeah, I don't know. Counter-Strike, hopefully, it's all going to be fine. Esports is a bit funny right now with the whole coronavirus situation, but luckily, we're one of the few industries that can keep going with online play. So it might be a little bit of a weird few months, but I think we're going to be fine. Also, check out my new podcast, Globally Offensive, live on Spotify right now. I love you all, and thank you so much for having me, guys.
Thank you very much, Henry. Pleasure having you. We're going to have you back every chance we get, whether it's talking about Counter-Strike or talking about Valorant or whatever. But thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your mini vacation in London as you get ready to go. I guess you're going, your next stop would be ESL Pro Tour?
Oh, ESL Pro League. Putting on my uniform, we're going to war, Scott. We're going in.
Okay, now we're not done. One more question. What do you think about everyone in your world picking sides, right? You've got talent that are like, Flashpoint is godlike, and other people are going, fuck Flashpoint, ESL is godlike. You've been pretty quiet in the sense of picking a side.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm a commentator, freelance. I'm not one or the other. I'm not contracted or exclusive to anyone. I could have worked either league, and Pro League made the most sense for me. I wish Flashpoint the very best. Some of my best friends work within it. I'm not sure why we have to shit on the other one to have both going.
Well, it goes right back to what you said. There's no gray.
Yeah.
There's no gray, right? You either like it or you hate it, right?
I really hope that product works out, and I think it sounds like a cool idea. It's a shame the teams aren't going to be quite what we hoped, and it won't be quite the spectacle in that regard, but it'll be a good proof of concept, and I look forward to watching it. Like, really, like, I don't know why we feel like we have to be like kind of, they're part of the Pro League squad. Fuck those dudes. Like, I wish they showed the very best, and I'll just be doing my thing on the show I'm paid to be on. So that's all I'll be doing. And for me, I just wanted to go where the best Counter-Strike was. You know, like, that's at the end of the day, when the team that came down to it, I saw the team list. I was like, well, that's the teams I want to commentate. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to do this for. Yeah. And I'd like to go out commentating the biggest names if this is the way it goes down. So yeah, it's no big deal for me. If the guys want to put their names out there and choose one side or the other, that's their prerogative. But it's not, you know, my style, Scott. I don't like to get stuck in to that sort of thing.
You are definitely a little chill when it comes to that kind of stuff, the drama side of our world.
I'm just here to commentate the Counter-Strike. Whoever pays me the most, I'll go there. That's about it. Like that's my mantra. Let's go.
Well, beautiful. Thank you very much, sir. This went longer than we told you it would, so I appreciate you sticking around.
Oh, that's all right, man.
Around with
Always
me
available. Love that.
Yeah. Beautiful stuff. Well, thank you very much, everyone. HenryG, 2019 Esports Caster of the Year right there.
Don't forget.
There he is. He's godlike. Thank you, Henry. You have a good day, brother.